All right. Well, happy first Thursday of the new year. I hope that you all had a wonderful celebration and are looking forward to some great things in 2024. I know that I am. I'm very excited about the opportunities for working with leaders and with being a guide and a resource for those who just want to be their best. And I said just, I probably shouldn't have, because it's actually a big deal when people invest the time into making themselves a better leader, because better leaders have their followers in mind and want to be their best, and by bringing out the best in others. So today, I'm pretty excited about what we're talking about today. We're going to talk about leadership styles, and we might not get through all of them. So this might be kind of a 2 or 3 part series. We'll see how it goes. The first thing that I want to talk about is just let's explore the fact that and acknowledge the fact that there are different leadership styles. Irene has been a part of my Cracking the Communication Code workshop. And so people know that my understanding and what I teach is that we all have different personalities. And because those different personalities impact how we communicate, the same thing happens with leadership. And not only is leadership decided on and based on our personality, but also based on situation and frankly, our role. You know, the title of this event is Lunch and Learn for Leaders and Those Who Want to Be. So not everybody who comes into this and who is attending this event is somebody who actually is sitting in an official leadership position. But that doesn't mean that you're not still a leader. We've talked about what makes a leader in previous episodes. And so it's about who are you, where are you at, what role are you playing? And all of those factors come into deciding what kind of a leader is going to be the right for that opportunity. As I say all the time, there is no right, there is no wrong, because life is situational, and there's times where we might have to be a different kind of leader based on the situation. But let's dive right in. First of all, we have an autocratic leader. This is this is a type of leadership that really started and was very popular in the earlier days of business. They are the centralized decision maker. There's limited employee involvement, and there's quick decision implementation. We see that still happening today in organizations where you have one person who's kind of making all the decisions. Obviously, that's going to happen in a smaller organization, but when it happens in a large organization, it takes a special kind of leader to be an autocratic leader of a large organization. Because if they're the ones who are making all the decisions, then it really is up to them to be the one who can then sell the vision, who can get the buy-in, and who can rally their troops to surround them and move forward in the decision that they've made. But there are times for this, and a suitable situation for autocratic leadership is if there's crisis management or strict deadlines. Sometimes where I've seen autocratic leadership be effective is when a new leader comes in. Now, obviously, you don't come in and be like, I'm the leader, I'm in charge. What movie is that from? There's always a movie quote in my head, either a movie or a song. The Aristocrats. One of the kiddies, I mean, that's an old movie, but in the Aristocrats, one of the kiddies, you know, they said, I'm the leader, I'm in charge. That's kind of an autocratic leader. If there's a crisis going on, if you're a new leader coming into an organization, it's okay to say, look, I'm getting my feet wet. I'm learning this company. I'm learning about you. And in order to make sure that I don't miss something and that we don't make some missteps as we are moving forward in this new era, I'm going to ask that decisions get filtered through me. So there is a time and a place for autocratic leadership, but I don't think that it is a good long-term solution, especially in the day and age that we're in now, where people want to be involved. They want to feel like they've had a role in whatever's happening in the organization that they're part of. So then, kind of almost on the other side of the spectrum is the democratic leader. Democratic leaders are collaborative decision makers. They have very open communication, and the team is involved in decision process. The challenge with that is you see very commonly that ideas are subject to death by committee. Things get talked about and talked about and talked about, but because it's so collaborative, this leadership style is so collaborative and so about communication, they kind of talk things to death, and not always do things get actually acted on. But of course, there is a time for this type of leadership, like when somebody's working on creative projects or team building. But in those instances, there is leadership because somebody has to take the initiative, somebody has to lead the charge. But there's the troops that are coming around, and it's rather than, when you think about leadership, you think about, okay, I'm the leader and everybody else is following me. Whereas with the democratic leadership, it's I'm the leader and everybody's working, we're all working together and we're going in the same place. Does that make sense? Okay. Of those two, how would you define your type of leadership? Are you autocratic or democratic?
I would say I'm democratic.
Okay. And when you have looked back on your leadership and some of the situations that you found yourself in as a democratic leader, can you tell me a story of when that's been successful for you?
Sometimes there were times that upper corporate management gave us new task, and just we're instituting, say, a new service or something like that, and I'd get the team together, and it's like, how are we going to make this happen? Mm-hmm. What's the best way? What works for you as an individual? What, how do you see yourself fitting into, this new opportunity? So, I mean, get their buy-in, so, and then as time went on, we would have discussions. So how's it working? What do we need to change, etc. So,
yeah.
Tom, I've been a pharmacist for over 43 years, and mainly in community retail pharmacy. And most of my career, I was a pharmacy manager in various retail chain situations, and also a staff pharmacist as well. So, and then also involved with the Oregon State Pharmacy Association in leadership too. So that's kind of my background. So,
yeah. Tom, what about you? Would you describe yourself?
My default is collaborative, but as a Blanchard situational leadership trainer, I've come to realize that it's not about the default of the leader, it's about what the situation needs. And sometimes, so my example is I tend to take a coaching approach, which is good when people hire me for coaching. But it isn't good if I'm working with a vendor and I go, well, you're pretty bright, you'll figure it out, what do you think we ought to do? Well, that's not appropriate to the situation because I need to make my expectations clear first. And sometimes they need direction more than support. So I think you need both to understand your personal style and then to learn to bring what's needed. And my example of the overdoing consensus is a fundraiser years ago, and I'll never forget this. 7 o'clock at night, most of us were parents, and it's hard to even get to the church, and we're planning a fundraiser, and we're all burnt out. And there was a 20-minute discussion on who's to bring the cups and which kind of cups are we going to bring.
Oh.
Now, we want everyone's voice in the mix. That's a value, but any value overemphasized creates blind spots. And I can remember not really my default. I said, I'll bring the cups, and if you don't like them, you can bring different ones next year. In other words, we don't need to reach a consensus on that. It's 7:20. The meeting ends at 8, and we haven't even, this is the first item of the agenda, not just cups, but the bringing the supplies. So this is not a business case, but it happens, but only to 100% of us, which is we want to get all the voices in the mix, but sometimes this isn't the time. This is a decision, let's make it, which doesn't mean you're an autocratic leader. It just means we're majoring in the minors, and this isn't the time to get everyone's voice. But you have to pay attention if it becomes habit, because then people feel their voice doesn't count. So that's my take on that. We have to ever work. And if we don't have the style necessary, we need to partner.
Yeah.
Because some of the more directive managers I've worked for have the strength of being clear and quick and concise, but eventually everybody waits around until she says, do this. And so she's training us not to take initiative, not accidentally, not intentionally. So leadership style needs to be understanding how you're wired and understanding how your counterparts are wired, and being able to come from differing styles based on the need of the person or the need of the situation.
Yeah, that's so good. I'm working with a lady right now, and she runs a small assisted living facility, and she's new as the administrator. The person before her was very autocratic. Like, the team could, the way she paints the picture, it's almost like they had to ask permission to breathe, kind of thing. And her style, though, is very laid back, and she wants to empower the team. She wants them to take ownership of the work that they're doing. And so there's been a challenge in what she's seen, is that some of the team there's been conflict, because in the absence of leadership, which is somewhat what the team is feeling, in the absence of leadership, somebody eventually will step up. And now it's like, well, wait a minute, you're not the boss. That's the boss. We need to have direction from them. So yeah, it is definitely a balancing act.
And the word autocratic, I tend to think of as somebody who's my way or the highway. So I like the Blanchard language, directive and supportive, because it's like autocratic brings the picture of the general just giving marching orders, and there's no flexibility. But if we were to not be autocratic, but to say, on this decision, we don't have a lot of time or room, then it doesn't take you over as being like always the general.
Yeah. In your experience and in the people that you work with, have you seen, though, that there are still autocratic leaders out there?
It's an ego thing, not a style issue, but it shows up in the style. There are people that are addicted to being in charge.
Yeah.
And so you're talking about not positional leadership, but in this case, they're probably likely to want the formal authority as well. And so when you unpeel it, it is less of a style than a drive. The drive to have your stamp on things. So if you're influencing ethically a person like that, you find a way to get it done and put her stamp on it.
Yeah.
I heard a diplomat once said, an Italian diplomat, is that true diplomacy is allowing them to have your way.
That's good. I like that. Okay, so I'm going to throw a monkey wrench into this conversation, though, just from some of my past experiences in a previous industry. what do you say to the idea that there are some autocratic leaders who really do, it's my way or the highway? And I mean, I know an executive director of a senior care facility. She's not there anymore, but that was exactly how she was described. Anyway, what would you say to the fact that some of those leaders do this out of insecurity? That they're so insecure in themselves as a leader and as a person and being able to actually do the role, that it comes out then as, well, we're going to do it my way. There's no other way. I'm not open to listening to any other discussion. What do you think about that as being a driver?
It's a possibility. Definitely. So, but
Yeah, you would have to ask some questions to see what is driving it. If I just say ego, then that is a bias on my part, even though I've experienced that. So what is the fear? And so there are some people that they don't like uncertainty, and it shows up in predictive index. If they have a really high D, they're precise, and it isn't really about their leadership world, but they don't like chaos. They put order to chaos. Now, if you're a person who lives in innovation and agility, you will feel like they're putting premature order on your creativity, but they're not aware of that. They're just uncomfortable, and they might be insecure and they may not, but they're uncomfortable because they see uncertainty and chaos, and their defense is putting order around chaos. So until we go deeper, we don't know what's driving it. So you think of a buoy on the water, everyone can see it, but until you see what it's anchored to, you don't know how to respond to it.
Yeah.
So then you talk about the impact. You know, when you come so directive, I notice people shutting down. And then she might go, oh, that wasn't my intention. And then you say, oh, I believe that. What is going on? And then they might say something like, well, I just didn't think we were going to pull this together, and the meeting was ending and I just needed to step up. And in that case, then they get a lot of leeway for being able to understand that their style isn't right or wrong, but it is creating an impact. And they ought to maybe turn it down at times.
Yeah.
And people that have that kind of drive for impact sometimes can turn it down. And it's still a strength. Your strength maximized, I used to say, becomes a weakness, but I don't say that anymore. It's not a weakness. If you're hyper organized, the opposite of hyper organized would be sloppy. So we don't want to go there. It's still a strength. But if you think of an amplifier, you just don't turn it up full blast, still have the default to organizing the world, but just don't have all the ducks have to line up all the time. Occasionally, a crooked duck might be what you need.
Yes, absolutely. Well, and that's the value of being a more democratic leader, because then I loved when we started talking as leaders about the fact that I don't have to be the smartest person in the room. I don't have to have all the answers. I don't have to be making all the decisions. I am the leader, and so the buck stops with me. But I want to have people surrounding me who fill in my gaps. And so when you do get into that situation, then like you said, you have some ducks that are not going to be lined up the way that you would line them up, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're not lined up. It's just not how you pictured it.
Yeah, so there's trade-offs.
Yeah.
There's trade-offs. I think that's very well said.
Yeah.
There's sometimes, Jill, that I've experienced, like say having a district manager who was just brought in to replace the previous one. So why was the previous one let go? You know, and a lot of times in large corporations, you have, you know, the top dog in the corporation, you know, head of, say, pharmacy overall or whatever, and then have somebody under them, and then a district manager under them. So just out of fear, you know, they don't want to misstep. And so, you know, a lot of people get run over in the process. but then sometimes I've had it where, you can talk to them and say, this is what I'm seeing. This is what my, staff is seeing, can we talk and what can we do? So, I mean, just being open to those conversations, so
Absolutely.
every situation is different.
It is. And that is what you just talked about, Irene, about being approachable. That's a key value, as we've talked about on previous episodes. That's a key value for a leader, is that they have to be approachable. Again, I will never be the smartest person in the room, no matter what leadership position I'm in. I tell my kids this all the time. I'm like, this is the first time that I've ever been a mom to a child this age. So I'm figuring it out as I go along,
Yeah.
And so being approachable and being able to get that feedback, to have that set up into the system of who you are as a leader and the organization, is really vital.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it keeps people as being people and being human. Yeah, good. All right, so the next one that I want to talk about is my favorite, and that's transformational leadership. And if you know anything about me, if you go onto my website, you'll see this transformational leadership theory is the premise of all that I teach. I believe that it is possible to make transformation within yourself as well as within others. And that's what transformational leader, they inspire and they motivate followers. They foster innovation and creativity, and their emphasis is on personal development. A transformational leader is going to come into an organization or be in an organization and say, how can I bring out the best in you? When you have, my experience has been that when you have a transformational leader at the helm, you have a higher engagement of employees, because you have a leader who's focused on not only that transformation within themselves, being the best version of themselves, but also activating the people that they're leading to be their best. The best situations for transformational leaders especially is going to be whenever there is organizational change or there's growth periods. Because again, their focus is on how can we get through this being the best version. How they already know that things change, and so as an organization is going through change, whether it be growth, whether it be a reduction, those are important concepts because that's happening today. We're seeing that massive layoffs. So this transformational leader says, okay, we're going through this transformation. Who do we want to be on the other side? Again, this is my favorite leadership style, because it's a person, Tom, similar to how you interact with people. It asks a lot of questions. It paints a picture. They will paint a vision of what they believe the future to be like. And it's based on what they believe is going to end up with the best results for the company and set people up for the best success. A transformational leader is able to take into play all of the players involved and how whatever's happening in an organization will impact them, whether it be the clients, the employees, the leadership team, the stakeholders. Transformational leaders, they want to take all of that into consideration and say, how can we come up with an outcome? How can I lead this organization so that all of these people walk away or end their day feeling like they've been the best version of themselves, and that this situation has been an amazing opportunity for them? Why? Maybe that's not the right question. What? Well, I'm going to ask anyway. Why do you think that people don't act more in a style of transformational leadership? Or do they, and it's becoming more of a norm.
Irene, you want to take first stab at that? I talk too much. I'm very
No,
passionate
no, you
about
don't, you,
this
you don't,
subject.
you
I'll be
don't
very
talk too
quiet.
much. No, is this, well, I can't say that, you know, it's becoming a norm, because I mean, you know, situations can change over time, you know, just depending on what's going on, you know, with economics or change in upper leadership, or I mean, there's all kinds of things that can change, that can influence how somebody acts. And then two, I mean, personal things that are going on, personal challenges that maybe are going on in our own lives as a leader, you know, that
Yeah.
we're having to deal with. Maybe, you know, somebody has a severe illness, or, you know, whatever. I mean, things happen.
Right.
So I would see more people like being democratic changing into transformational. I don't know how easy it would be for somebody who's an autocratic person to change into a transformational, you know, leader. Maybe if there was change in management above them, you know, that would inspire, you know, it's like, it's okay to do it this way. So get permission from, you know, upper management or whatever. So sometimes companies just change direction for good or bad. So
Yeah. I read this book, gosh, probably 10 years ago. And I have it on my shelves, or my husband has it on his shelves, one of the two. And it's called Turn This Ship Around. And it was the story of this ship's commander and how he completely revamped the leadership of the ship that he was commanding, which was not in alignment with typical military practice. You know, military practice, they're very autocratic. It's like, look, you do it this way, or you're or you're punished, you know. And so he used transformational leadership and took the worst performing ship and turned it around.
Yeah, I've read that book. It's amazing.
Yeah, it is a good book. Good. Tom, any last thoughts?
Yeah, I want to start with my first experience of you, Jill, was watching a video before we had talked about when things happen that are painful and how you get through them. And from your example, I would say transformational leadership begins with a heart set and mindset, and it transcends and includes all the leadership styles. So you can be introverted, extroverted, directive, supportive, autocratic, democratic, but the mindset is, what are we going to do with this, whatever this is? What's a resourceful response? So it's taking responsibility literally. And then from that, we start to think about education, which literally means to draw forth. How can we draw forth new resources? And that's the question you're always asking when you say, you know, the best me to respond to this. And so I just say that in this age of tremendous accelerated change, transformational change is not an option. It has to be instilled, but it starts with a mindset. And it's the idea, from what to what.
Yeah.
And so not just where are we going and what are we trying to accomplish, but who are we becoming? Because what profit a woman if she gained the whole world and lose her soul? So what becomes clear in listening to you, I got this all from you, is just that being who you're meant to be and living on purpose is not optional for you. And some of the things you do will work and some won't. But if you're anchored to that truth, you'll become who you need to become, even though you wish this hadn't happened.
Yeah.
So thank you for that inspiration.
Aw, thank you. Thank you. Well, I want to be aware of our time. It's already 12:32. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm excited about next week. Next week, we're going to talk about a few more types of leadership styles. We're going to talk about transactional leadership, servant leadership, and charismatic leadership. I hope you can join me. Feel free to pass on the invitation to others that you think would benefit from this conversation. Thank you for your contribution. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll talk soon.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Nice to meet you, Tom.
Nice to meet you too, Irene.
Bye.
Bye.